Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into a really interesting period in American history, the Age of Consensus after World War II.
Yeah, that post-war era.
You know, the one we often picture, those neat suburban houses, everyone kind of on the same page.
That's a great starting point. Those years, the post-war years in the U.S., they definitely had this unique feel. And today, yeah, we're going to explore some of the key things, the characteristics that really defined American society back then.
Exactly. Our goal today is just to look closely at what made this Age of Consensus tick. You know, break it down in a way that's easy to grasp.
Sounds good.
So first up, Levittown. What exactly was Levittown and why was it such a big deal?
Right, Levitan. It was one of the very first, maybe the most famous, of these huge suburban housing developments. Really changed how many Americans lived.
Huge how? Like, what made it different?
Well, the scale, for one,
Mm-hmm.
but also the method. It's fascinating, really.
Not just a few houses going up here and there then.
Oh, not at all. Levittown used this revolutionary approach, almost like an assembly line, but for houses.
An assembly line for houses?
Yeah. Standardized design, standardized processes. It meant they could build homes incredibly fast and, crucially, at a price people could actually afford.
Okay, affordability. That seems key, right? Especially after the war, veterans returning, families starting and growing.
Absolutely. The timing was, well, perfect. Levittown offered this tangible thing,
Yeah.
a way for returning GIs and their young families to get that piece of the American dream owning their own home.
A reachable dream.
Exactly. It was specifically designed to be within reach. And that focus on standardized single-family homes, with the little lawn,
Yeah.
it really cemented a particular image of what success looked like.
So it wasn't just about the money, it sort of reshaped society.
It fundamentally did,
Mhm.
making home ownership accessible to so many, really for the first time on that scale. That was huge.
Okay, so Levittown is this key example. How did it feed into the bigger picture? The whole idea of suburbia during this Age of Consensus.
Well, Levittown really helped kick off this much wider trend, this massive growth of communities outside the main cities, suburbia.
What was driving that?
A few big things. More people owning cars, definitely. That gave folks the freedom to live further out from where they worked.
Right, the commute became possible.
And there was this real desire for more space.
Yeah.
Bigger houses, yards for the kids, maybe a feeling of escaping the noise and density of the city.
So cars in space.
Pretty much. And these new suburbs, they often look kind of similar. Those single-family homes, maybe similar layouts, the lawns, a big focus on family life.
A certain look and feel.
Yeah, and often an underlying feeling of, shared values. Maybe a bit of social conformity tied in there too.
Okay, conformity. That kind of brings me to the next term, the organization man. That sounds specific, like it describes a certain type of person.
It's a very descriptive term, yeah. The organization man sort of represents the ideal employee type that became really prominent in the big corporations of that era.
Ideal how? What were they looking for?
Well, the emphasis wasn't so much on, like, being a lone genius or taking huge risks. It was more about fitting in.
Fitting in.
Yeah, loyalty to the company, being a good team player, working well within the group.
So blending in was maybe more valued than standing out? What were the trade-offs there? Did that make things stable or did it maybe, I don't know, stifle new ideas?
That's a really good question. The focus was definitely on, fitting into the existing corporate culture, understanding the hierarchy,
Playing the game, sort of.
kind of, and moving up steadily within those established structures.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a shift from maybe the rugged individualist idea towards finding security in a big organization.
Security over risk.
In many ways, yes. And that conformity, it could definitely foster stability, predictability within companies. But like you said, some argue it might have also, maybe inadvertently, discouraged really radical thinking or people who didn't quite fit the mold.
Interesting balance there between the individual and the group goal.
Exactly. A key tension, perhaps.
Okay, let's switch gears. Something else that just exploded then. Television. How did TV shape this Age of Consensus?
Oh, television.
Yeah.
Its impact was just transformative. It spread so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, most Americans were having very similar viewing experiences night after night.
Like everyone gathered around the TV set.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It quickly became the main form of entertainment, a really powerful, unifying force in national culture. It's amazing how quickly it just became part of daily life.
So everyone's watching I Love Lucy or the same news.
Mm.
Did that share experience also kind of pressure people to conform to the ideals they saw on screen?
That's definitely part of the discussion historians have.
Yeah.
It wasn't just entertainment either. TV became this incredibly effective way to advertise,
Ah, advertising.
which massively drove consumerism, right?
Yeah.
Showing off all the new products, creating this widespread desire for them.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it played a huge role in spreading shared information, certain cultural norms, certain values, right across the country. It was powerful.
A shared cultural landscape created right there in the living room. Okay, now what about franchises? I think fast food.
The franchise model really took hold and expanded back then. It's basically, granting licenses to people to run a standardized business.
Standardized is the key word there.
Absolutely. Offering specific products or services under a known brand name. Think about some of those early successful ones, not just food, but motels, services.
Okay.
What's appealing is the consistency, the predictability.
For the owner, yeah,
But also for the customer.
right. So you knew exactly what you were going to get, whether you're in Ohio or California.
Precisely. And that feeling, that predictability, it really contributed to developing a more unified national marketplace. Recognizable brands everywhere.
Familiarity, trust.
Yeah, and it tied into that whole feeling of consensus shared experiences. The rise of franchises wasn't just business. It kind of reflected this broader desire for things to be reliable, understandable, the same wherever you went. Part of that consensus feel.
Makes sense. Okay, impossible to talk about this era without mentioning the baby boom. We know it was this huge spike in births after the war. But what were the wider effects? What did it mean to have so many kids born around the same time?
Well, yeah, on the surface, just a lot more babies, a huge jump in the young population. But the impact, demographically, was massive.
How so?
Well, think about it. This surge created enormous pressures, but also opportunities. Suddenly, you needed way more schools,
Right, classrooms bursting.
more housing, obviously. And then down the line, as this huge generation grew up, you needed jobs for them all.
So a whole generation experiencing similar things at the same time.
Exactly. It kind of implied this shared experience growing up in this time of, relative prosperity, expanding families. And because they were such a large group,
They had clout.
they absolutely did. They went on to have this massive influence on American culture, politics, everything in the decades that followed. Think about the strain on resources first, then the economic power later.
A generation that shaped America. Okay, last big concept. Consumerism. We touched on it with TV and advertising, but what really drove that massive increase in spending? And thinking about it now, do we see echoes of that today? Has that focus on buying stuff changed much?
Yeah, consumerism was definitely booming. Several key things fed into it. One, rising incomes. After the war, many families just had more money to spend than ever before. Disposable income.
More money in pocket.
Two, as we said, advertising.
Mhm.
Especially on TV. It was constantly showing people new things, creating desire.
Making you want that new fridge or car.
Exactly. And three, there just were more things to buy. A flood of new consumer goods appliances to make life easier, new car models symbolizing status, freedom.
So more money, more stuff, and constant ads telling you to buy it.
Pretty much the perfect storm for consumerism. And don't forget credit.
Ah, paying later.
It became much easier for people to borrow money. Buy now, pay later. That really fueled spending too.
And culturally, was buying things seen as good?
There was definitely a shift. Acquiring material possessions increasingly became a sign of success, of normalcy. Part of the American dream was tied up in having a nice, well-equipped house, the latest conveniences.
Keeping up with the Joneses, maybe.
That phrase certainly captures some of it. And your question about today, it's a great one. Many would argue that, yeah, this emphasis on consumption, while it looks different now, it's still a huge part of the culture, driven by similar things, ads, credit, social pressure, even if the products and how we buy them have changed.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. These characteristics of the age of consensus, the suburbs like Levittown, the organization man, TV taking over, franchises spreading, the baby boom, booming consumerism. Really feels like they're all connected, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You can't really understand one without seeing how it links to the others. It was this interconnected web.
Like the suburbs needed cars, were filled by the baby boom families?
Right. And TV pushed the consumerism that bought the goods made by the corporations where the organization man worked.
And franchises provided the standardized stuff for this growing consuming population.
Exactly. It paints this picture of a society that, well, at least on the surface, seemed to share a lot of the same goals, values, experiences.
Yeah, a sense of shared experience.
And while we always need to remember, it was more complex than that there were tensions, exclusions. For sure, these key characteristics really do define that overall feel. The age of consensus in post-World War II America.
So if you're trying to get a handle on this era, you think about those mass-produced houses,
Yep. Corporate loyalty,
families around the TV,
familiar brands everywhere,
that huge generation coming up.
and a nation just eager to buy stuff.
That really sums it up well.
It gives you a pretty clear picture, I think.
Okay, now it's time for a little self-assessment. Just a few questions to get you thinking a bit more about our deep dive today.
Good idea.
First one, can you describe, say, two key characteristics of Levittown and explain why they were so appealing back then?
Second, how did the rise of television, how did that contribute to a sense of national culture during this age of consensus?
Third, what does that concept, the organization man, tell us about the values of the workforce in that era?
Fourth, in what ways did that franchise model, reflect the broader trends of the age of consensus?
And finally, number 5, what were the main things driving the growth of consumerism in post-war America?
Yeah, really thinking through those should give you a solid grasp of the defining features of this really pivotal time.
Definitely. And on that note, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the age of consensus.
Pleasure to discuss it.
Here's one last thought to maybe chew on. How might that very emphasis on conformity and shared values during this era, how might that have eventually, maybe ironically, led to the social and cultural movements that pushed back, that challenged those norms in the decades that followed? Something to think about until our next deep dive.